today, the average gas price in America hit an all-time record high of over $4 per gallon. Okay, that stings, but a clean conscience is worth $1 or $2. I'm willing to pay $4 a gallon. Hell, I'll pay $15 a gallon because I drive a Tesla.
Everyone wants to talk about 2022, so here's the truth. The America First message has never been more appealing to voters than it is right now. Because while Democrats are ghoulishly obsessed with defending gay rights and liberal democracy halfway around the world, Americans are facing real problems right here at home. Inflation, gas prices, crime, mandates, the immigration crisis, sexual anarchy, and anti-whiteness in our schools, and Republicans win by staying focused and speaking right to these Americans. Democrats know this. They know that their domestic policy is unpopular and terrible, which is precisely why they are trying to distract us with Putin and Ukraine. But all that Republicans have to do is stay focused on the issues that actually matter to Americans. But sadly, the Republican establishment does not understand this. Instead, we have many Republicans trying to prove that actually we are the real Ukraine first party. You have Lindsey Graham out here trying to prove that Republicans are the real war hawks and the real neocons, and you have Kevin McCarthy wearing a foreign flag into the State of the Union, and it's like, okay. Now, the truth is that outside of Silicon Valley in Washington, D.C., average Americans don't care about a Ukraine. They care about the fact that they're paying $7 a gallon for gas and they can't afford to buy a house. Contrary to what Stephen Colbert says, nobody outside of Hollywood is genuinely willing to pay this much for gas just to protect gay rights and gender equality in Ukraine. And you can call it selfishness all you want, and that would be ironic considering our entire political class doesn't even care about the people that they serve. But regardless, it's actually perfectly normal and rational to want to preserve your own community before you go fight wars for the rest of the world. And that's honestly how most Americans feel. We're going to talk about all of this in a little bit, but first, be sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe if you're new and you agree with what we've said thus far. Which honestly I feel like is most conservative. But I promise you, we have a very epic conservative channel and community right here. So again, leave a like and be sure to subscribe. Now to continue here, I can prove to you that what I'm saying actually does work for Republicans. Just take a look at the national energy and the GOP success stories that we have seen since 2020. And the common theme that we are seeing is that the domestic culture war is the winning issue for Republicans. Not foreign policy and not big government. No, the primary reason that Glenn Youngkin won in Virginia is because of two things: medical mandates and far-left ideology in education. Everyone knows this. He won by being a culture warrior on the domestic issues that actually impacted Virginians. Not by calling for regime change in Russia, no. And it's the same reason that 3 school board members in San Francisco are facing recall. Yeah, not Virginia or even New Jersey, San Francisco. You know, like, I'm not pretending that these school board members will be magically replaced with a bunch of pro-Trump conservatives, but it does tell you a lot that even in San Francisco, this education thing is a losing issue for Democrats. It tells you a lot about where the national energy is when incumbent Democrats are facing recall in the most liberal city in America. Like, no wonder that Democrats want to make this entire election about foreign policy, because on domestic issues, they are losing in a landslide. Again, Republicans would be smart to figure this out. And of course, we shouldn't expect competence from the GOP. I mean, it's the GOP, but if they really wanted to win over the hearts of Americans and not just the donors, this is the real way. Like, I don't think that Glenn Youngkin is the perfect caricature of what Republicans should be like nationwide, but there's no denying that the reason he won in a blue state was because he was an effective culture warrior. Which of course begs the question, why are so many Republicans scared of touching cultural issues when this actually does very well with voters? Well, I'd say that there's 2 reasons: cowardice and malice. The first reason is that they're simply just scared to do so because the left says very mean things about you if you actually take a stand on cultural issues. And Republicans would rather just sit around and cry about taxes all day. But has anyone ever actually stopped to wonder if there's a reason why the left gets so angry when we become cultural warriors? Maybe it's because it actually works, right? Like, as we see, this stuff is not popular with Americans, and maybe it's because the left understands that controlling the culture is more important than controlling the tax rates in the grand scheme of things. And maybe that's why they call you a racist, sexist, homophobe the second that you touch cultural issues, because controlling the culture is very important to the left, and attacking them on cultural grounds is very effective for us. Just an idea, but I would say that the real reason the GOP is soft on the culture war is not just because they're scared. It's because they are basically controlled opposition to the left. In many such cases, the Republican establishment is compromised. They are in lockstep with the left, they are bought out by big tech and the Koch brothers, etc., etc. We know the story here, it happens many times, and it's very sad. But anyways, assuming that we actually did primary a lot of people out of office and hypothetically got a very effective Republican Party, what should the 2022 platform really look like? Because honest Republicans do struggle very hard to balance out the notion of small government with the culture war, but I would say that it really isn't that complicated. And I would say that someone who actually did a good job of balancing those two concepts was Don Huffines, the guy who ran a primary challenge against Greg Abbott. Now, Don Huffines was small government in all the areas that he needed to be small government in, right? He ran on abolishing the property tax and supporting the Second Amendment, but at the same time, he was not coy about using state power to close the border, ban all mandates, public and private, purge wokeism from our institutions, bring back school prayer, and go after big tech. Truthfully, this is where most Republican voters actually stand. Your average Republican really supports the mantra of small government for a few reasons, because they like guns, they hate taxes, and they just generally want to be left alone. But at the same time, your average Republican really does want something to be done about the left-wing march through our institutions. They do want to stop big tech. They want to take action at the border. They want to purge the anti-whiteness from our schools and corporations. And it is really not all that complicated. And as we will reiterate, we are also seeing that these cultural issues are important to the moderates as well. And of course, someone is going to say, well, Don Huffines lost, so what are you talking about? He lost his primary. And it's like, yeah, because he was running against a very powerful political machine. But it should also be noted that Greg Abbott adopted many of Huffines' stances to an extent because they were popular. And Ron DeSantis has kind of already figured out an early beta test version of this model down in Florida. Carrie Lake is about to ride the model that I just mentioned to victory in the governorship in Arizona. Again, it works. Republicans are at their best when they don't cling to small government mantras on the important cultural issues that they do actually need to take a stand on, or when they support high taxes on economic issues. Like, it's seriously not that complicated. You can balance out certain concepts of small government with certain concepts of being a cultural warrior. It's not that hard. You just have to do it correctly. And I would even say, to an extent, Glenn Youngkin kind of figured this out, right? He was big on CRT, he was big on gender ideology, COVID mandates, but at the same time, he ran on abolishing the grocery tax in Virginia, if I'm not mistaken. Like, it's not that hard. You can do both. But again, to conclude here, folks, Republicans have the chance to win really big in 2022 if they stay focused on the America First message. And specifically, they have a lot to gain from fighting the culture war, so long as we don't get distracted by globalism and my Ukraine. But of course, that's a tall task to ask of Lindsey Graham and Kevin McCarthy, isn't it? And of course, I don't work for the Republican Party. I'm just a humble, ordinary conservative here, but this is free advice. So take it. Take the VinceDao advice and use it, GOP heads, if you want to. I mean, you don't have to, you know. I'm sure the political consultants that have been leading you off of a cliff for 40 years, they must know exactly what they're doing, but you know, whatever. It is what it is. But there's my honest advice. There's my synopsis of this upcoming election. So, okay, with that being said, thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. Again, be sure to subscribe if you're new, and I will see you guys next time. Alpha moves only. God bless and peace.
Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo as long